Welcome to Days of Roar, the Detroit Tigers podcast, brought to you by the Detroit Free Press. My name is Mark Gorash. I am here with Free Press beat writer Evan Petzold, fresh off the airplane from Minneapolis, where the Tigers took a series from the beat-up Twins. Ev, how was the plane ride?
Plane ride was good. I felt like a crazy man because I was the only one going from Minneapolis to Tampa with a big winter coat, but I needed it for those first 2 days in Minneapolis. They were pretty frigid, but now we're in warmer weather and excited about it.
All right. Well, why don't you recap the week for us?
Yeah, it's a 3-4 week for the Tigers. 8-10 record in the past 18 games. 5-0 start to the season. 4-3 record against the Minnesota Twins in the past 10 days with a 1-3 record against the Texas Rangers mixed in between. Look, the Tigers are sitting at 12-10 overall for third place in the American League Central, behind the 16-6 Cleveland Guardians, 13-9 Kansas City Royals, but ahead of the 7-13 Twins and the lowly 3-18 Chicago White Sox. A couple of things that stood out to me this week, Mark. It's the offense. Tigers have averaged 5 runs in the past 7 games. Before that, just 3.5 runs in the first 16 games of the season. We're seeing progress on offense, and it all started with better approaches all week long. I think the approaches against individual starting pitchers were a lot better. It didn't always mean success, but the Tigers did a good job of sticking to their game plan and drawing walks. We saw that a lot towards the tail end of that Rangers series, where even sometimes it felt like the Tigers were drawing a lot of walks and they weren't able to cash in with the big hit. The good thing is they were still getting on base with those walks. When you're getting on base, good things are going to happen. We've seen that more often recently. And that's the big thing to me, right? They're sticking to their game plan and taking it into the game. First 16 games this season, 3.1 walks per game. Last 7 games, 4.7 walks per game. That's a really big difference, and that's the reason why we're seeing the offense tick up a little bit recently.
The other thing, gotta like, never say die. No matter how dead they look, somehow in the 7th or 8th, they seem to make a game out of it. If they could pick up a ground ball or make a few routine catches in the outfield, they'd have won 3 more games this week. But just when you fix one thing, another thing breaks. It's part of early season baseball. And like I said, though, scrappy team so far. Gotta like it. I'll tell you what, let's jump straight into the Big Two. First question of the Big Two. We're 22 games in. What's good? What's concerning? Is it too early to care? Tell me your thoughts.
I think part of it maybe is too early to care in some senses, but I think in other ways, like, you kind of have to try to analyze best you can, even though it's just 22 games. There's still so much baseball left to be played. But again, like, what do you make of the Tigers' defense, for example? So good to start the season, and then suddenly falling off the rails in the last, 3, 4, 5 games, right? It's just kind of been a train wreck for them, but they were such a good defensive team early in the season for, about 2.5 weeks. And then suddenly they haven't been able to make some routine plays that, we've seen them make. They really preached clean baseball. AJ Hinch has talked about that since day one of spring training. He's all about that, all about guys being prepared, showing up and making the routine plays, being on top of it, not making silly mistakes, not giving the extra 90 feet. Like, those are things that really matter, not giving teams extra outs. The Tigers have done an amazing job of that, and then suddenly they weren't able to do it. Now, what do I make of that? I don't know. At this point, I don't know. I think it's too soon. What I do think that we can kind of be excited about is the bullpen. And we haven't talked about the bullpen enough, but a 1.60 ERA, that's first in Major League Baseball. I do look at the FIP, which is fielding independent pitching, 3.75. That's 9th in the big leagues, maybe due for a little bit of regression. But at the same time, look, you got a 1.60 ERA. You're first in the big leagues when it comes to the bullpen ERA. They're getting the job done. 23.4% strikeout rate. That's 13th in the big leagues. 10.1% walk rate. That's 18th in the big leagues. Again, probably walking too many batters, maybe not getting enough strikeouts, which means more balls in play, things to monitor. But the Tigers are doing something right out of the bullpen. These guys are coming in and getting outs, and they're a big reason why. When you talk about the fight of the team, when you talk about having those opportunities in the 7th, in the 8th, in the 9th, even in the extra innings to come back, it's because guys are shutting it down out of the bullpen to keep the games close. That's what really matters. That's the biggest thing. The Tigers have scored a large portion of their runs in the 8th inning or beyond this season. It's actually pretty astronomical when you go and you dig into the numbers, but the reason that they're able to come back and score those runs and win those games in late innings is because of this bullpen getting the job done. Now, there's been a lot of high leverage innings put on this bullpen. How is that going to hold up over time? I'm not so sure. I love Jason Foley as the closer. Love the strikeout rates going up because the better version of his slider. It's super early, and I know that this bullpen has been taxed. It has been used a lot, especially in high leverage innings. But I'm pretty confident in what I'm seeing out of this group. And then you do look at other things, right, Mark? Like, how much do you make of Parker Meadows? And how much do you make of the bad start and then the good last week of Javier Baez? Like, those are some of the conversation pieces where I think it might be a little bit too early to really make, a big picture review on those players in particular. But you got to like what the bullpen's doing. That's really standing out to me.
Yeah, before we hit the bullpen, I thought a lot about the defense while you were on the airplane, and I want to bring up a couple of interesting parts of the defensive lapses of this week. I don't know what you make of them, but a couple thoughts. One, Kerry Carpenter, who has just been a revelation at the plate, just killing baseballs all the time. And when he's not killing them, he's flipping them over the shortstop's head with 2 outs and a runner on second or third. But in the meantime, big misplay in left. How many games has he played in left field? I count 1. So he had the big issue. He was in left field. It's the only game he played in left field. Who made the big miscue in right field? Wenceel Perez. How often has Wenceel Perez been playing since the start of the season? 3 games. The big mistake at third base? Zach McKinstry, who's normally playing third base at that point in time. Gio Urshela. A lot of these mistakes are being made by players that often may not be playing there, but due to how often A.J. Hinch switches up the lineup and how aggressively he's willing to put guys in the lineup due to injury, he's had to switch things around a little bit. The only time defense has really cost them from a regular defender has been the continuing circus defensive plays of Spencer Torkelson. But a lot of the other mistakes are being made by guys who just don't play a lot of innings at those positions. And it's something to pay attention to in the future to see if that continues, or once the lineup gets a little more settled, if some of that stuff starts calming down and they go back to playing elite defense. As far as Parker Meadows goes, it's been pretty scary. I mean, at least he made contact his last at bat today. The first 3 at bats he K'd. Balls in various places in the hot zone. It wasn't like he was swinging and missing at pitches not in the strike zone. A little concerning, and I'll be fascinated to see how long they put up with this. I don't really think it's going to be too much longer, although Evan Petzold's prediction was looking pretty good before today. Today looked like a lot of what we've seen all month. So,
Mark, I still think the defense is so good, and they're going to give them a ton of leash just because of how good the defense is. And the fact that also, let's not forget about the fact that, Parker Meadows has drawn 9 walks, and I understand that the strikeouts are going to be a problem, and you got to hit the ball, you got to move it forward. I understand that. But when he does get on base, he can really do some things, and that's important. But how about Cole Keith, too? Somebody that we have to talk about. We have to mention that as well as a recent trend. And, Cole Keith is somebody who I said I thought he was going to hit from day one, and he hasn't been able to hit from day one. I thought we saw pretty good approaches, especially early on, but maybe not as much recently. Maybe he's now trying to do a little bit too much to try to make an impact. Only has 1 extra base hit. It was that double back in New York against the Mets. And I don't know. Now, he's kind of in a spot where he's scuffling. And there's a reason he didn't play in Sunday's game. There's a reason Buddy Kennedy started at second base. If Cole Keith was going good, he would have been starting that game. That wasn't a scheduled off day. That was just trying to get him a chance to kind of reset mentally a little bit and regroup, because he's scuffling bad right now. And the at-bats are getting worse and worse. Where are you at with Cole Keith?
Still pretty confident. I just think that
long-term, me too.
Well, it's not just that. I still think the approach is pretty good. I think, the last 4 or 5 games, maybe getting a little frustrated in pitches he at least normally makes solid contact on. Whether they're hits or not is a whole different discussion, but hasn't really put good swings on balls in hittable places, which I think is a big reason why AJ knew he was pretty frustrated and needed a day off. We'll see where it takes us, but still not too discouraged about Colt Keith. Hopefully this week will be a better week, but, these are things we need to wait and see. In addition to that, you did an article about Kenta Maeda this week, and he's well aware of his struggles. He thinks they go back to his Tommy John surgery, but why don't you share with us what he told you through his interpreter?
Yeah, I was just trying to figure out a little bit more about where he was coming from with the mechanics. He had mentioned that after his most recent start against the Texas Rangers, in which he gave up 3 home runs, and the home run that he gave up, especially in the first inning, that was head scratching. That was one that you worry about, because it was fall behind 0-2 in the count to Marcus Semien, the leadoff hitter in the first inning, and then it's literally like a center cut, 89 mile an hour fastball, right down the pipe, and obviously that thing's going to be gone when you throw it to Marcus Semien. That guy's not going to miss that pitch. Come on now. Not an 89.4 mile an hour fastball that's center cut. So that was concerning to see. But again, it's an example of what happens if Kenta Maeda isn't throwing strikes. If he's not able to land his pitches in the strike zone, and it's not just his fastball, he also has to be able to land his splitter and land his slider. And if he doesn't have all 3 of those pitches working together, opposing teams can start to eliminate certain pitches, and then you can pretty much just get to a certain point where if he's not landing the slider and if he's not landing the split, but specifically if he's not landing the slider, you can really just sit fastball, and you can really just take splitter and just sit fastball all day, knowing that he's not going to be competitive with the slider. So Kenta Maeda said it's a mechanical issue. It basically goes back to, the surgery that he had. He had Tommy John surgery, and he missed, the entire 2022 season, came back in 2023, went back on the injured list with another little issue, and then was able to come back in the summer and dominated last year, from the summer on once he came off the injured list, and was really, really good. But he talked about the fact that prior to the surgery, he didn't have to be aware of cleaning up his mechanics and getting things synced up, what his mind wants to do, and then also what his body wants to do. And there's a discrepancy between the mind and the body right now, and everything needs to get synced up. So it kind of sounds like he has an idea of what he wants to do, like in his head, what his body needs to do. It sounds like he gets it. But the question is going to be, okay, now, can he do it? And then also, can he repeat it? And I thought we did see some positive signs. When you go back to his previous start before the outing against the Rangers, April 13th, against the Twins at Comerica Park, he was actually pretty good in that outing. I know he gave up 2 runs, but only one of those runs was an earned run on 5 hits, no walks, 5 strikeouts, 6 innings. Fastball average 90 miles an hour. That was good to see because it was an uptick from where he had been, but then it regressed again. So the question is going to be, can this guy find the mechanics that he needs to find and then repeat it? He better figure it out, because he's on a 2-year, $24 million contract. He's not going anywhere, by the way. For people saying send him to Toledo, that's not happening. DFA, Kenta Maeda, that's not happening either. He's on a 2-year, $24 million contract. If anything, he maybe moves with the bullpen, but we're still a long way from that. The Tigers are going to keep rolling him out there. They're paying him. So he's going to have to get it figured out. He said that too. He said as much. He said that he's confident he's going to be able to figure it out, but regardless of his own confidence, he needs to figure it out. But every pitch is down right now. Opponents are crushing the fastball. The splitter has a below average whiff right now, only 21.1% compared to 35% last year. And the swing and miss rate on the slider is just terrible now. So he's going to have to figure things out. It sounds like it's mechanical. Hopefully he can get it locked in for his next start.
He's a mess. I thought this might be a convenient time for some shoulder fatigue. Take a 10-day rest, get a rehab start in Toledo, and see if they can reset him. I'm not sure that'll happen immediately, but it might happen if the next start is as bad as the last start was. Not a big fan of running out Flaherty, Maeda back-to-back in the rotation. It makes winning streaks quite difficult.
Hey, Mark, real quick, before we move on to the question 2, the big 2, because I know we got to get there, I do want to say, and you mentioned this before, but how about the hat tip to Kerry Carpenter? Can we just like formally hat tip Kerry Carpenter right now? Because this is a guy, when you talk about trends and what's real, what's not real, this is real. I went and talked to him. I said, hey, obviously you're seeing it well. How long have you been seeing it well for? And he said a week or a week and a half before spring training ended. So he has been absolutely locked in from back in Lakeland. And so the fact that he says that, and then we're seeing what we're seeing on the field, he's not searching for timing. He's not searching for his approach, trying to figure out, where the zone is at and where he wants to hunt and where he's going to do damage. He's had all that stuff locked in. The timing of the swing on fastballs has been locked in, and the approach has been locked in. And the numbers speak for themselves. Kerry Carpenter has been great. He has put the Tigers on his back and absolutely carried 4 doubles, 2 triples, 3 home runs, 12 RBIs, 3 walks, 17 strikeouts. Say what you want. The guy's hitting 318, and he's got a 942 OPS. So he's raking. Kerry Bonds Carpenter, hat tip.
Hat tip, baby. He's just an absolute destruction machine lately. The big eraser. That's what he's doing. He's erasing a lot of mistakes, man. He was all weekend. He was all week. And, just hope he keeps it up. I mean, Kerry Carpenter, he gets on a roll. He stays on a roll for a pretty long time. All right. So the other hat tip we need to give this week is to one Javier Baez. I think he at one point, he was 6 for his last 20. I think he finished the week 6 for his last 21. 2 walks, homer. I ran out of fingers counting the great defensive plays. Really made quite a few really good ones and got quite a few big hits. So for those of you wanting to send him in a spaceship to the moon, I think you got to have to wait another week or two. He was quite good this week.
Yeah, and you know what? But I'm going to take a kind of like a pump the brakes there on that. I do appreciate that. Like, he has been great offensively this week. It's been good to see. We have seen this before. Let's do it 2 weeks in a row, and then let's make it 3, and then let's make it 4, and let's keep building, because that's something that we've seen from Javier Baez in the past. Is he has a really good week, and then it's like this extreme regression. And he did get a lot of first pitch fastballs, especially in that Texas Rangers series. Took advantage of them. I thought it was fascinating they were throwing him first pitch fastballs, probably because they thought he wasn't going to be able to be on time for him. So I kind of get it. But at the same time, when the guy's got so much swing and miss, maybe they try to just go down and away. But he also did a good job of laying off those pitches. So again, like a little bit of balance where Javier Baez is kind of showing a little bit more discipline, forcing teams to go back in the zone with fastballs. And surprisingly, for the first time in more than a year, he's been on time for those fastballs, which is really encouraging to see. I want to see him do it a second week in a row. But the one thing that I'm a believer in with Javier Baez, and that I know he's going to bring day in and day out, because I've seen it since spring training. And that's the thing, again, when we talk about trends and what's real and what's not real, the defense is so real. The defense is real. Javier Baez, good defense, is back. And I'm not just talking about the spectacular plays, because he's always made the spectacular plays. I'm also talking about the routine plays. He's back.
And the base running.
That's facts.
All right. Question 2 of the big 2. It's the elephant in the room question. Will Spencer Torkelson ever be a playable defender?
It was pretty bad, wasn't it? I mean, for real, like it was really frustrating to see this week. And I do want to just throw this out there before we even get started. Spencer Torkelson, in my opinion, has been looking a lot better offensively. And I want to start there because I think it's important to mention that. This is somebody who came out of spring training, even back at spring training, like we weren't seeing the hard hit balls that we had seen in the past. And that was really concerning to me. I remember even last year, Spencer Torkelson had a great spring, and it wasn't because he had the back of the baseball card numbers. It was because he was hitting the ball hard. And that was encouraging to see. He took that into the season. He was one of the most unlucky hitters in baseball for the first month and a half, even into 2 months. And then he finally started to get it going and got rewarded for some of the hard hit balls and the hard hit contact. And now we have seen more of that recently. He has recorded his highest 4 exit velocities in the past 6 days. That's a 108.7 mile an hour double, 107.2 mile an hour flyout, 106.8 mile an hour double, and 106.5 mile an hour double. That last double there that I'm mentioning came on Sunday against the Twins. That was off Jay Jackson there in the 7th inning. It was a big hit for him, and really good to see. So I do like the fact that we're seeing the exit velocities creep up. I think he still needs to get the ball in the air to the pull side more often. We're still seeing too many ground balls, and it's got to be pull side. It's got to be in the air. If Torkelson can do those 2 things, we've talked about it time and time again. We talked about it last year, and it still applies. He's got to get more balls in the air. He just has to get more balls in the air to the pull side. And if he does that, he's going to get rewarded for these exit velocities, and he's going to be able to benefit with quite a few home runs. So I like the fact that he's hitting the ball harder. That's a good sign. But the defense is really concerning. He's now worth -4 defensive runs saved. He was worth -11 defensive runs saved last season, and it feels like a liability at first base because there's just too many routine plays that aren't being made. And again, respect to Torkelson because he booted a ball that was bad. I mean, it was a bad boot, and it was unacceptable, and he admitted that. I want to read you his quote, okay? And then I'll explain to you the situation. Quote, "I was ready for it. I wanted it. Tough bounce. I just didn't make the play. It's unacceptable. I need to be better. I will be better." End quote. That was Spencer Torkelson after the Tigers lost 4-3 to the Twins on Saturday, second of three games at Target Field. And yeah, he fumbled the ball in the fifth inning, and it led to 2 unearned runs, and the Tigers lost by 1, and that ultimately cost them the game. But I like the fact that he's being accountable. I also like the fact that the bat is heating up. But yeah, the defense is bad, Mark.
Yeah, well, we're going to have to, you're playing 2 over 500 teams this week. Can't keep giving away runs. They're playing a lot of close games. And, first base isn't a place where you normally are used to guys booting the ball so consistently over the course of a month. And you're already coming off a season where they acknowledged his defense, besides Scoop, was pretty atrocious. So it's something we need to keep an eye on. And I'll be curious if it continues. If he doesn't start, he looked so much more relaxed today, not having to play defense. That was just my personal opinion. Okay. But we'll see. I think it's going to have to get addressed. He hit a bunch of
balls hard, though, too, right? Like, he looked really good. He looked really good offensively, hitting a lot of balls hard. That was good to see. But what do you do? That's the big question. I mean, the big problem last year was going, balls to his right, towards second base. That was a really big issue for him in particular. But now it seems like everything. It's slow rollers right in front of him that he has to charge, that he's not able to make the play on. It's a ball that maybe it's a bunt that he charges and he has to decide, okay, am I going to throw to third base, or am I going to throw home, or am I going to try to turn a double play? And he just seems to get caught in between, trying to figure out what he's going to do when there isn't just one specific option to throw to. There maybe is 2 options, and he gets caught in between, and then ultimately it's kind of like a no play or it's a bad play. Like, those are the plays that are concerning to me. I understand, going to his right might be a struggle, but when it becomes second guessing yourself and the decision that you're going to make with your throw, and also botching ground balls directly at you, that's when it's concerning. And I just wonder, how long is it allowed to go on before the Tigers try to think about maybe playing somebody else at first base? I think it's maybe a little premature to talk like that, but maybe worth keeping in the back of our heads.
It's something we'll keep an eye on. As far as the swing, yeah, it was a lot better this week. Last 7 games, 304, 421, 423. Slug, 421 on base. So, it's a heck of a lot better, to say the least. I think he had 6 walks, just a lot better at bats. Still not prime 2023 Torkelson. My buddy Jerry Makinen, is really, really good about breaking down, a couple 2-week segments and how guys are going about doing what they're doing. He's been hitting almost twice as many balls to the pull side in the air in the last 10 days. Always a good sign for him because that's his go-to play. It means he's on time, and should be a matter of time if he continues to build on this last week before he starts popping a few out. All right, we're going to take a break. When we come back, we have a special guest this week. We got Jaylon Thompson from the KC Star, KC Royals beat writer. We'll be back with Jaylon in a minute.
All right, I'd like to welcome Jaylon Thompson, Kansas City Royals beat writer for the Kansas City Star and a friend of the USA Today Network, to the Days of Roar podcast. Jaylon took over as the Royals beat writer for the KC Star in May 2023 after 2 years with USA Today as a sports producer. He graduated from the University of Georgia in 2017, and although this is his first job as a baseball beat writer, it's not his first job in baseball. We're thankful to have Jaylon on the Days of Roar podcast for the first time as we seek to get a regular rotation of beat writers from the other 4 American League Central teams. Jaylon, thanks for being here.
Man, thanks for having me, guys. I'm so happy to be here. And I love that introduction. That was great.
No doubt about it, man. So, hey, let's start with what might be the question that everybody wants to know, especially with the Royals coming to Comerica Park over the weekend. And feel free to give me the long version of this answer. I know it's early, but how in the heck are the Royals 13-9 and in second place in the AL Central? I mean, this is a team that lost 106 games last season.
Yeah, I think a lot of it has to go with the mentality. If you go back to last year, the Royals were really good down the stretch. I believe they won 12 out of their last 18 games, and they were rolling. It included a sweep in Houston against the Houston Astros. They won, I believe, 2 out of 3 against the Yankees to end the year at Kauffman Stadium. You can just kind of see like the offense was kind of turning the corner. And this offseason, they went out and they spent money. And I think that was also key. They got starting pitchers like Seth Lugo and Michael Wacha. They revamped the bullpen by getting guys like Will Smith, Chris Stratton, traded for Nick Anderson, got John Schreiber in a trade. So, all these things have started to come together. Got Hunter Renfroe as well as an outfielder. He's a guy that can hit 20 home runs a year. And just bringing it all together, marrying it all together. And I think with the steady improvement of guys like Brady Singer and Bobby Witt Jr., Michael Garcia, getting Vinny Pasquantino back, all that kind of came together. And these guys were like, why not us? Why not try to win the American League Central? And I think you're seeing that. You're seeing the confidence. You're seeing the growth. You're seeing just the development. And they've been playing well. They just went up against a really hard schedule. They played the Baltimore Orioles. They dropped 2 out of 3. But the Orioles are a tough team, and they were once in the World spot. So I think that was a good test for them. They beat the White Sox 6 out of the last 7 that they play against them this season. So we'll see where they go, but it's just got to continue to keep it rolling. 13-9 right now.
That's really good stuff. I love John Schreiber, by the way, a Tigers draft pick who actually made his big league debut with the Tigers, and he's been really good since leaving the Tigers. But hey, look, before we dig into more Royal stuff, we have to talk about a lot of things. First, I want you to tell us a little bit more about you, your journey to becoming the Royals beat writer for the KC Star, and kind of how you got here.
Yeah, I love telling this story because it's almost, I won't say movie-like, but to me, it kind of feels that way. So I was sitting at home. I'm from Georgia, so I'm staying with my folks, and I'm working at USA Today and trying to just get on a beat. That's what I wanted to do with my life, right? So I remember getting a phone call from the Kansas City Star, my editor, Jeff Rosen. He called me and he was like, are you still interested in covering the Royals? And I was like, I didn't notice the KC number, but I answered the call anyway. And I had applied for the job a couple months ago, and I forgot I even applied for it because I was doing so much. And I talked to him, I talked to my other editor, and then next thing you know, a week later, I talked to the main editor of the Kansas City Star, and I'm in Kansas City 2 weeks later. So it all turned really quickly for me. I really love baseball, and I always wanted to do it, but I knew that I had to go on the journey. And that journey included covering high schools, climbing the ladder to success. But I just remember being at USA Today and reading your stories, Evan, and reading others, and just like, I got to get to where they're at. So it's been nothing but a true blessing, and I'm so happy to be here. So that's kind of how I got to Kansas City.
That's awesome, man.
That's some exciting stuff, man. It's like a dream come true. I mean, you can only imagine when everybody gets out of J school, how many people want to be a beat writer, and you got to do it. So that's a beautiful thing that early in your career, a lot of hard work paid off, and now you're in a major league clubhouse almost every day. That should be a lot of fun for you. So, all right, so let's get back a little bit to the Royals. The Royals lost 106 games last year. They decided to get rid of some of their pitching, go with some younger pitching. So besides adding Michael Wacha, Seth Lugo, they picked up Cole Reagans during the season last year. He's kind of like a Tarek Skubal light, I kind of like to call him. Very hard-throwing left-hander, huge upside, and they decided to go with Alec Marsh, who's been very good so far. And, so far the rotation's been very good for KC. So talk to us a little bit about some of the things, how they've overhauled pitching, bullpen, not quite as much depth, But we can get to that. We can talk about the new closer, but talk about the rotation because it's been a really big thing for Kansas City, a big improvement from last year.
Yeah, for sure. And a lot of credit has to go to Brian Sweeney, the Royals pitching coach, and his staff, and how they develop these young pitchers that they have on the roster. We talk about Seth Lugo and Michael Wacha. They were established veterans that came in. But Cole Reagans comes over from the Texas Rangers, and he's like, I want to kind of throw a slider. I want to improve on that. So what does he do? He goes down in AAA when he first comes over. He works on the slider. He improves it. Now it's one of his dominant pitches that he uses in his starts. You look at a guy like Brady Singer. Brian Sweeney came to Brady Singer, and he was like, we think that you can throw a sweeper. And he had a PowerPoint presentation. He brought up how he has the arm movements to do it and how he can be a better pitcher. Because remember, Brady Singer really only had 2 pitches in his arsenal. He had the sinker and he had another pitch. But he started adding the sweeper in there. He started adding the 4-seam fastball to go along with that sinker and a 2-seamer that he has, right? And that has kind of helped him get off to the start that he's at right now. Alec Marsh is another guy. We mentioned him. He was in a battle for the 5th spot in the rotation with Jordan Lyles. And they went with Alec Marsh because Alec Marsh came in and he looked really dominant this spring. I mean, he looked like a different pitcher. And those were the exact words that Brian Sweeney was saying, how he had the confidence, and you kind of saw it on the field. Alec Marsh is another guy that they taught the sweeper to as well. And they actually taught that to him in Boston last year during the Red Sox series. They were working in the bullpen, getting ready for one of his outings, and he picked up the sweeper. He threw it a couple of times. He's like, yeah, this could be a weapon for me. And that's kind of how he's relying on that sweeper now, and that's how he's got to that success that he is as that 5th starter. So the Royals, they are constantly just looking and doing different things and helping these younger guys out. And I think that's why you're seeing why they're so successful now and why they got off to those 12 quality starts this season.
Jaylon, it's pretty interesting because I see their starting pitchers going into today's game. They have a 2.77 ERA, which is 3rd in all of baseball. In addition to that, they've been able to really suppress home runs. I saw that they have the 3rd lowest home run fly ball rate at 6.1%. The other thing that I thought was pretty fascinating is Jordan Lyles lost his first 15 starts, or Kansas City lost the first 15 games that Jordan Lyles started last year. Alec Marsh, the first 4 games he's thrown, won them all. So that's a huge, huge turnaround. I have noticed that not the biggest strikeout staff in the major leagues, kind of low on the K9, but they're obviously getting outs. So the revisions seem to really have worked, and obviously a big reason for the turnaround this year.
Yeah, for sure. And I think one of the big things to that is the defense. If you look at the defense that the Royals have, the infield, Michael Garcia is a shortstop that's playing 3rd base. So you're getting the added benefits of him having that range and his arm strength at the hot corner. You're seeing the improvements that Bobby Witt Jr. has made as well. Michael Massey just came back from the injury list, but last year he really worked on his backhand. He was already a good defender, but his backhand got better because they worked with Jose Aguasil, who's the infield coach. And if you go and watch them pregame, he's drilling them on just ground balls and funneling balls and making sure that you're throwing it to the correct bases and having the right, fundamentals. That's really what they drilled home. And, of course, getting Vinny Pasquantino back at first base, another big target you can throw to, and he catches everything. He's actually doing well as far as defensive run saves this year. So you look at that infield, and that's a comfort zone for those ground ball pitchers that you mentioned that they have, because Michael Wacha and Seth Lugo are going to pitch to contact. Those are the guys that they made their money with in their MLB career, and they're going to stick to that. So you got to have a good defense behind him to help, get those ground balls and those fly balls and keep the game and the flow moving. And that's exactly what they've done this year.
Royals defense plus 16 defensive runs saved, also plus 7 outs above average. Both of those are top 3 in Major League Baseball. Jaylon, you mentioned Seth Lugo. I have to ask about him because the Tigers were in on him the last 2 years. Now, they weren't going to do 2 years, $30 million plus the player option. There was no way that was going to happen. But if Seth Lugo would have wanted to do, a 1-year deal 2 off seasons ago, if he would have wanted to do a 1-year deal, maybe plus a club option this past off season, maybe he'd be a Tiger. But that obviously isn't what he wanted, and he got more in free agency in both cases. But what are you seeing from Seth Lugo so far? How big is he for the Royals? Not only just as a good pitcher, but also as a veteran in that clubhouse.
Yeah. With Seth Lugo, I love how his ability to connect with the younger guys. I remember in spring training, he would go, and Michael Wacha too would do this as well. They would watch, the other guys' live bullpen sessions and throwing lives on the field to different hitters. And they constantly taught the game. They taught the game any and everywhere they can. Like, if you watch one of the Royal starters, when they come out the game, all the other starters huddle up in the dugout and they discuss what they saw, things that you can do better, things that you were great at, moving into the next start. And they do this every single start that one of the starters has. So I think just that veteran leadership, knowing that a Brady Singer can come to Seth Lugo because he also throws a variation of a sweeper and two seam and sinkers and all that. Seeing how he pitched against the guys before he made his start, that could help, come up and help the plan come together and when whoever they're going against, So just those type of things are just great. And I think Seth Lugo has really been key in that development. And all the Royals love him. He's just a good guy in the clubhouse.
Well, so talk to us a little bit about the bullpen. There's been a transition. I think James McArthur's the new closer. Looked before the season like it might be experienced closer Will Smith. Kind of some transition there. Talk to us about how they've reshaped the pen and how it's worked out for the Royals.
Yeah, the bullpen is, like any MLB team, it's going to be a work in progress. It's going to be different guys coming in and out of their certain roles and things of that nature. For James McArthur, he really showed that he could hold down the closing role last year. And by signing Will Smith, they said they were going to give him an opportunity. But with McArthur, you've seen that he doesn't flinch in those moments. And when he's out there, they have true belief that he can get the job done. And a lot of that is just coming down to his experience factor, his calmness on the mound. He can give you an inning. He can go 2 innings. His nickname is the General. That's what they call him around the clubhouse and on the team. So I just think that his ability to step into that role, Will Smith has gotten off to a slow start, really has helped the bullpen continue to move forward. And also, they're still going to count on Will Smith. He's a veteran. He can get lefties out, and I think he'll get better as the year goes on. But outside of those two, really looking at guys like John Schreiber, I mean, he is a really good, valuable piece to have in that bullpen. Chris Stratton, he's walked a couple of guys, but that's kind of uncharacteristic for him. He's someone that can also go multiple innings, and they really like Angel Zerpa because he can pitch in a starting capacity like he did sort of last season, but he can be that bridge guy that can go multiple innings when you need him to, and is also a lefty. So they have a lot of young, talented, and experienced pitchers down there. And I know I'm missing some. Nick Anderson also. They're going to get, hopefully, Carlos Hernandez back. He can throw 95 to 100. Jake Brent, same thing. So they have guys that they can mix and match and fill in. So we'll see where it goes. But for right now, the bullpen is just being that steady piece that they need to be.
Jaylon, you mentioned Will Smith being off to a slow start, but let's not forget this guy's won 3 World Series in a row with the Atlanta Braves, Houston Astros, Texas Rangers. Is this guaranteed the Kansas City Royals are going to win the World Series in 2024?
I'm not going to go that far and say that because I believe that the 21-game sample size that they have now, there's still got to be a couple of things that have to be ironed out, I believe. But for right now, what happens, they're also a good start. Like I said, 13-9, so I guess it'll be 22 games now.
You cannot discuss the hot start or anything about the Kansas City Royals without discussing Major League superstar Bobby Witt Jr. off to a super hot start, 13 extra base hits, 4 homers. I think he has the highest barrel rate in the major leagues at 19.9%. So talk to us a little bit about Bobby Witt Jr., and then I want to get into the hot start of Salvi Perez when we're done with that.
For sure. Bobby Witt Jr., he has really taken off. we all saw what he did last year, hitting 30 home runs, stealing 49 bases. And it really showed that he has that power and that speed combination that we all knew he could be when he got drafted back then in 2019. But what you're seeing out of him now is his ability to continue to hit the baseball to opposite fields, be a force on the base paths. The amount of runs that he's being able to score right now is really great. It is really, like, I won't say astronomical, but I mean, he's on a good record pace. And you're also seeing his ability to kind of lead. Salvador Perez, like you mentioned, is the captain of the team, but Bobby's also taking on some of that leadership ability, and he kind of started that last year, and now just continuing to go forward. But to see where Bobby is in the next progression in his game is going to be key. There are some defensive plays that you saw out of him. You know, Nick Lofton jumped over him and he got the out at first base. That was a play that happened a couple of games ago. You see the defensive plays we mentioned earlier about him going deep in the hole and throwing guys out. So he's really coming into that rounded game. And I think that the power is going to come. The home runs are going to be there, you know. So he's at a point now where he's at that ascension to go to the next level.
It's really interesting because the Royals and Bobby Witt Jr., they agreed to a long-term extension in early February. It's an 11-year deal, $288 million. That's the guaranteed rate. And if everything maxes out, it's going to be 14 years and $377 million. Obviously, that's a huge commitment to a young player. That's insane type of money. Do you think he can live up to this kind of a contract? And if so, what's led you to believe he can?
I think he can live up to the amount of money that they have given him. If you look at just what he's done his first 3 years in the league, he's been great. I mean, 20 home runs, I believe, in one of his first couple of seasons, and he hit the 30 home runs here. So, you know, just being able to expand his game, that's something that's going to be key. And if you look at how his contract is structured, he has opt-outs after the 7th, 8th, 9th, and 10th years of the deal. So, you know, he can get back on the market if he truly feels he wants to and make another big contract. But the reason why he signed with the Royals and took that extension is because he believed that he could win here. He says he wants to stay in Kansas City for the long haul, and the moves that they made, he just felt the time was right. Those were his words. So we'll see if the Royals can, you know, win and make a deep playoff run and make a playoff run with him. But that's kind of where they're kind of at right now as Bobby continues to grow.
All right, so talk to us a little bit about Salvi. He's off to another Salvi Perez caliber start. Never known for much plate discipline, probably DHing a little bit more this year, but already has 6 homers and, you know, obviously a Royals Hall of Famer and quite possibly a baseball Hall of Famer. So talk to us a little bit about, you know, this quick start Salvi's jumped out to.
Yes, Salvi has really jumped off to a good start. The power has always been there. We've seen him. He's hit 48 home runs before in his career. But this year, I think a big part of it is just having that protection in the lineup. And, you know, pitchers can't really pitch around him like they did last year when Vinny Pasquantino wasn't there, or when MJ Melendez wasn't hitting the way that he is hitting, or Nelson Velasquez wasn't there until the second half of the year. Now the Royals have options, and they have people that are around Salvador Perez where you can't really just pitch around him because you're going to run into another challenge, whoever may be batting in front or behind him in the lineup. So that has allowed Salvi to continue to just be himself. And a lot of it also is probably health as well. You know, Salvi always gets beat up back there behind the plate, but the Royals have kind of helped take a lot of that off of his load a little bit because he still makes quite a bit of the starts behind the plate, but he also can play first base now. So he can be a DH. So just the wear and tear of it and his ability to even expand his game at his high age of like 34, 35, that's really great to see as well. So, you know, it's just a matter of, can he keep it going? Can he continue to progress? Can he stay healthy? And can the numbers hold up? And I believe that it's possible that it can because he has that protection in the lineup now.
You know, I see Pasquantino is off to a good start. Obviously a good hitter, was good last year. Any more depth in the lineup, or Are there any other pieces you think will appear during the season? I mean, Hunter Renfroe seems like he's on a new team every year, but he does hit 20 homers every year. But what else do they have?
I think Nelson Velasquez, I mentioned him earlier, I think he is going to be a big key for them. He told me that he wants to be a guy that hits those 25 home runs. He wants to be a guy that hits the doubles, and he recognizes that pitchers don't want to throw the baseball inside against him. So his whole mindset now is to hit the ball up the middle, hit the ball the other way, basically going where the pitch is being thrown, because he knows that he can help his team that way. So that just tells me that he's willing to expand his game in order to help the Royals win. And I think MJ Melendez is another guy that you're probably going to see continue to take a step forward. He's a guy that hit over 40 home runs in the minor leagues in one sitting, in one term. It was with multiple affiliates, but he hit the 40 home runs over 1 year. So they know what kind of power that he has as well, being as a outfielder for the first time really all season. He's no longer catching. He's going to be in left field holding it down out there. So I think that he can take the next step in his development. And he's so athletic. He can do so many different things. So it's just a matter of him playing with confidence. And you're seeing that early on. So I think those guys will be key to help taking this lineup and strengthening it and lengthening the lineup as well. Hunter Renfroe, you mentioned him. You know what he's going to be. He's off to a slow start, but he can probably turn it around as he gets more at bats. I always say that the baseball card never lies. So whatever you've done on the back of your baseball card, eventually you're going to get to that point, because that's just how the game is being played.
We've talked about everything from offense, defense, starting pitching, the bullpen. The start that the Royals have had, obviously, it's caught a lot of people's attention, especially in the American League Central. Real quick for me, Jaylon, are you surprised by it? And then also, what's the X factor going to be if the Royals want to stay good and keep doing what they're doing throughout the rest of the season?
I'm not necessarily surprised that they are doing as well as they could, because I believe in spring training, I saw that this team could be really good. What I am surprised about is the fact that they're never out of any game. They're always fighting back. Last year, you could have said at times, if they're down 8 runs, 9 runs, this one might be over. But you can't really say that this year. And what's ironic too is I believe today's game was one of the first times they got shut out the entire year. So I think that's just another key showing that, they're right where they need to be. And to answer your second question, can they keep it going? The pitching. The pitching is going to be the key for them to keep it going.
That's really good stuff. Sounds a lot like the Detroit Tigers, never out of any game. We've heard that a lot in Detroit as well. All right, that's all the time we have for Jaylon, but we really appreciated your time, man. It means a whole lot. We're going to see you this weekend as the Royals travel to Comerica Park to play against the Tigers. Hopefully we can get you back on the podcast at some point in the future.
Yeah, and I can't wait to see you guys as well, and I would love to come back on again. Thank you so much for having me.
Yeah, we're already looking forward to it, man. Thanks again for joining.
Yes, sir. Thank you.
Thanks, Shay.
Everyone, that was Jaylon Thompson, Kansas City Royals beat writer for the Kansas City Star. There's more to discuss this week, but first, let's take a break.
It's great talking to Jaylon. KC 13-9. Hard to believe they're 13-9. And we're going to get to see him this coming weekend, as we alluded to in the interview. It's interesting to hear how they're doing. Let's get back to how the Tigers are doing. There was something I want to bring up to you I found pretty interesting. I noticed the Tigers are 4-0 in Casey Mize starts. They are 3-1 in Tarek Skubal's starts. And they're 5-9 when Maeda, Flaherty, or Olsen start. I don't think it's something worth being too concerned over, but it is something to keep an eye on. It's kind of why I alluded to earlier. I'd like to see him break up Maeda and Flaherty in the rotation, especially the way they're throwing. Curious if you had some thoughts on that, and then I want to dig into a little bit of how damn good Casey Mize has been. Not that his stuff has been that good, but he's just really grinding games out, and I like when I'm seeing how competitive he is.
Yeah, Mark, I don't think there's any surprise that the Tigers are 4-0 in Casey Mize starts and 3-1 in Tarik Skubal starts. Those have been the two most consistent pitchers so far for the Tigers. There's been a ton of bad from Kenta Maeda. Reese Olson has had some up and some down. Granted, the stuff is nasty, I get it, but there has been some up and some down, especially when it comes to him not only getting ahead in counts, but staying ahead in counts. And then for Jack Flaherty, he's had some really good, and he's also had some meh. And Casey Mize has been good. He's been a bulldog through and through, no doubt about it. And Tarik Skubal is Tarik Skubal. So I'm not surprised when you talk about 4-0 in Mize starts and 3-1 in Tarik Skubal starts. I think Tarik Skubal, you kind of know what you're going to get at this point out of him. And I think he's only going to get better as the weather continues to warm up. He's had to pitch on some really cold days and in some really cold situations, especially with some of that wind blowing too. That's never helpful, especially because the ball just gets really dry. You're not able to really keep a good grip on it. So as the weather warms up, I think Skubal gets even better. I think Mize gets even better. But how about Casey Mize? How about the bulldog in Casey Mize? And in the fact that he's been able to grind, I think what he did on Sunday was a perfect example of what Casey Mize can be for this team. He didn't have his best stuff. Not even close. Not at all. He didn't even have the splitter working until the 5th inning. All right. He was basically just a fastball only guy. And yes, he was throwing in sliders, a lot of sliders, but the slider was terrible. There was no horizontal movement on it. It wasn't moving whatsoever. It was kind of just going straight down. And so he didn't have a whole lot to work with, but he battled through that start. And then he was able to get deep enough into the game where he could find a feel for the splitter. He weaponized the split in the 5th inning, got like 5 swings and misses on it in the 5th. And that was pretty impressive to see him bounce back like that and be able to deal. And then you look up and it's 6 scoreless innings. So, was it a 6 scoreless innings type performance there in the series finale against the Twins on Sunday? Absolutely not. But from a competitor standpoint, was it? 100%. Casey Mize battled. And if he can keep doing that, and I think he's going to because he's got that dog mentality, things could be really, really good.
So he had an interesting talk with Mize in the past few days, and he shared a little bit with you about things in his rehab he may have not discussed before, especially how the back surgery impacted him and really some of the pain that he was feeling in his leg previously and things he never really discussed before. So share a little bit about that.
Yeah, it was interesting. He talked about it for the first time ever. There really hasn't been a whole lot out there about his back surgery other than the fact that he had back surgery. And he talked about one of the things that he was struggling with pre-surgery was trying to put that left leg down, that lead leg. And when he put it down, if he put it down in a certain position, there would be nerve pain that would run basically from like his lower back down to his left leg and into his leg. And so there were certain body positions that he wasn't able to get in because his body basically said, stay out of these positions. It hurts. Like, don't do that. And so, kind of naturally, he would stay away from those positions. And now, again, that type of nerve pain, if you go look it up on the internet, like it can happen if there's a herniated disc or a bone spur in the spine and it presses against the nerve. And in some cases, it can feel like an electric shock. So imagine trying to go down the mountain, you feel an electric shock, shooting down your leg. You're going to stay out of that position. Well, now he's got the surgery. He's all good. He's pain-free. And he was able to retrain his mind and his body to trust being in those positions that were so foreign to him before because of the pain that he was in. So he has the back surgery. It leads to new mechanics. It leads to more fastball velocity and more ride on the fastball because he's putting his body in a better spot. Now he's got an elite fastball, and that's helping him succeed in compete mode because he's able to battle. And there are times when he can throw challenge fastballs. Before, Casey Mize 93-mile-an-hour fastballs wasn't going to do it. But now he can throw 95, 96, 97 with, 18, 19 inches of vert. That's a real deal type fastball. That's an elite caliber fastball. So in fastball counts, he's now able to attack with the fastball and doesn't have to just throw the slider in there because he's got nothing better to go with. I mean, the splitter obviously being a risky pitch with it down in the zone. If he needs a challenge in the zone, he can challenge with the fastball, and it can be his best fastball against the hitter's best swing, and we'll see who wins. That's a fun Casey Mize. That's a competitive Casey Mize. I love it.
Yeah, I'm excited about the journey he'll be on this season. I think there's a lot more swing and miss in that tank. There's more consistency and polish on both his split and his slider and his knuckle curve, to be really honest with you. He's been kind of living off his fastball, and That's not a bad thing, but I'm excited to see what he can add consistently when it comes to off speed here. As far as the back goes, Mark Gorash had his own back problems. He's had a herniated disc in his back, and the idea, even the thought of pitching with it, is borderline insanity. But yeah, Casey Mize, we were worried about him making the team at times in spring training, and so far, team's 4-0, ERA under 3. Got to love what we're seeing from Casey. All right, had a few things go on this week. We had Gio Urshela go to the IL, hamstring issue. Going to miss him. Recalled Buddy Kennedy today, who was the player of the game. Asked how surprised Mark Gorash was about that, but profoundly happy for the kid. Yeah, we'll miss Gio. Gio is an annoying hitter with runners on base and just really, really solid defensively, makes a lot of difficult plays look easy, and they'll miss him at third. Need Matt Vierling to step up here a little bit. You got Andy Ibanez. Give me an update on that one.
Yeah, well, Gio Urshela, it's a bummer, but it sounds like he's not going to be out for too long, maybe just a couple of weeks. Sounds like it's a low-grade strain for the hamstring, so that's what you like to hear. Low-grade strain is always a good thing. Only a couple of weeks, hopefully he's going to be back. But again, hamstring strains, you don't want to mess around with those because if you have a re-injury, that just creates more of an issue. So I'm sure the Tigers are going to be pretty careful with him. Andy Ibanez has been on the injured list since April 8th with a left hamstring strain, and he's not going to be activated in the coming days. It might be a little bit more time. He traveled to Lakeland, Florida to continue his rehab at the spring training facility while the Tigers were in Minneapolis. He's going to rejoin the Tigers in St. Petersburg here on Monday for the 3-game series against the Rays, then go back to Detroit as he continues to rehab and get back. It doesn't mean the Tigers are going to activate Ibanez for the series against the Rays. He's doing hitting and defensive drills every day, but he's not running without restrictions yet. He needs to finish his running progression and complete a rehab assignment in AAA before he returns to the Tigers. So we're still watching the clock for him. We'll see how long it takes. He'll definitely be back before Gio Urshela, you have to think, just considering how much progress Andy has already made and the fact that, Gio Urshela, while it is a low-grade strain, that's still pretty fresh. But right now, yeah, Tigers riding with Buddy Kennedy and Wenceel Perez in replacement of those two guys.
And both of them have contributed, so let's be honest about it. I mean, Wenceel's done a lot of really interesting things, done some bad things.
That kid can hit.
Yeah, done some bad things, done a lot of good things. All right, couple last facts for this week's Days of Roar. One, Riley Green leading the major leagues in walk percentage after today at 21.5%, which is just, I think there's only one player in the major leagues that even approaches anything like 21.5%, which would be Juan Soto. But definite positive change for Riley. Still not really stinging the ball day after day after day. I have brought this up many times. Last year, April 26th, Riley Green took off and pretty much didn't land until injuries caught up with him, but just was spraying the ball, spraying line drives and power all over every major league park, and expecting that to start happening soon. Probably lose a little bit of the walk rate then. He'll get a little more aggressive at the plate, but can't say that we don't like 21.5% walk rate, especially hitting leadoff. What do you think, Ev?
Yeah, he loves it too. Riley Green says that he loves walks, and he's going to take as many of them as they're going to give. So he's going to keep taking them. I think that's a good sign, trying to get a good pitch to hit. And if he's not getting the pitch that he wants to hit, Riley Green's going to take his walks, and he's going to get on base, and getting on base matters. At some point, everything's going to click, and he's going to start driving the ball more, and he's going to start getting more pitches to hit, and he's going to be doing damage. But the fact that he's always going to be able to reflect back on his April and say, wow, like, look out, I was able to draw walks. I was, getting myself in a good position to hit. I think that's a big sign for him. He's not a guy that's known for drawing walks. He's obviously a guy who's, known for striking out a little bit more. But for him right now to be sitting at 20 walks, 24 strikeouts, it's got to feel pretty good.
Well, let's talk a little bit about the catchers. Defensively, they've been extremely good by pretty much any metric that they measure, whether, Baseball Prospectus has a really good way to measure catchers' metrics. Savant's also pretty good. Both catchers in the top 15 often are in the top 10. But when it comes to swinging the bat, really been a problem this year. Currently, combined, 11 for 80 this month. I think they have 7 hits combined for the month. It's been a real problem. Curious how long and when AJ Hinch is going to feel he needs to be concerned about it.
Not anytime soon. I'm going to stick with kind of the same Parker Meadows mentality when it comes to these two behind the dish, Jake Rogers, Carson Kelly. They're both appreciated for what they do defensively. And I think anything extra that they get is offensive, and obviously you're going to take it. But Tigers like both these guys with. They handle the pitching staff. They put in a lot of time working with all of these pitchers that are in the rotation and in the bullpen. There's no reason to go away from that right now. So I don't see any change coming anytime soon for either of these guys. I think we're going to have to get deep into the summer before a move is made off of one of these two, barring an injury. Jake Rogers, he's going to have to take his time and hopefully heat up. Carson Kelly, we actually saw some pretty good things from him offensively early on in the season. Not as many good things lately. But look, if they're providing what they're supposed to provide defensively and they're able to run into one or two every once in a while, and maybe Carson Kelly puts up, some good at-bats, Tigers are going to take it. I don't think there's going to be a big rush to bring in Dylan Dingler, who's the only other catcher on the 40-man roster, when, let's be honest, there's a lot of questions about, and concerns, honestly. There's a lot of concerns about Dylan Dingler's offense. So what's the trade-off? Is it really worth it? Not at this point. Not even close.
Yeah, it's hard to disagree. I will say our old buddy Eric Haas, I noticed he had 3 homers, AAA already. So I hope Eric's doing well. I don't think there'll be any push to bring him back soon. But all right, we're going to get out of here. It's the middle of the night. We always love a good Days of Roar After Dark. I'd like to remind everybody to please like, rate, and share and subscribe, baby. Wherever you listen to any podcast, especially Days of Roar, Apple, Spotify. And you can always find us embedded in every Evan Petzold article at freep.com. Big week coming in Detroit. Got the draft this week. Got a couple games with Tampa Bay. Then a series with the KC Royals right during draft time downtown. Should be a busy week downtown for Evan Petzold to try and park and get down there. I'd like to thank our executive producer, Kirk Crawford, and Anjanette Delgado, and the Free Press editor, Nicole Avery Nichols, our producer, the man, Robin Chan, who will make everything sound so much better than it deserves to be. He saves us every week, like we say. To my grandson, got to see his first baseball game at Wrigley Field today. I'm sure the thing he liked best about it was the pretzel. And to the spectacular Savannah Petzold, your boy will be coming home in a few days. So till next week, to everybody, peace.